You already knew the answer before you took the test. Your grandmother was Italian, not part Italian, not Italian somewhere back down the line. 100%, no question, Italian. You grew up in it. The Sunday sauce that cooked all day on the stove. The language she slipped into when she was angry, or praying, or counting money at the kitchen table. The old country in every story she told. If anyone on earth was going to show up as pure Italian in their blood, it was going to be you. So you spit in the tube, you mailed it off. You waited the 6 long weeks, and when the results finally loaded, you scrolled straight past everything else, looking for the one number that would simply confirm what you had known your whole life. And there it was, 19%, maybe less. Italian, 19%. Sitting there next to a whole pile of things you had never once heard your family claim. Greek, Balkan, something the test just called Southern European, a slice of Iberian, and that quiet, sinking feeling starts to creep in. Did the test get it wrong? Did the lab mix up the tube? Was there some secret nobody ever told you? Was your grandmother not who she always said she was? No. Stop right there. The test is not wrong. The lab did not make a mistake. Your grandmother was not lying, and nobody in your family has a hidden secret. What you are looking at is one of the most misunderstood numbers in all of genetics. And once you understand why it's so low, you're going to realize it's hiding a second story underneath it. A story about what the word Italian has actually meant for the last 2,000 years. And that second story is far stranger and far bigger than the one you came looking for. First, you should know you are not alone, and you are not losing your mind. If you open the Ancestry forums right now, you will find the exact same heartbroken question posted thousands upon thousands of times. My grandmother was 100% Italian. Why am I only 5%? My no. Na came straight off the boat from Sicily. Why does my DNA barely show it? Am I adopted? Because this makes no sense. It is so common, so relentless, that back in 2018, major newspapers, The Washington Post, NPR, and others, ran an entire news story just to answer one reader's version of it. The headline was simply this: "My grandmother was Italian, why aren't my genes Italian?" Think about that. The question is so widespread that professional journalists had to call in geneticists to calm everyone down. This is not a rare glitch that happened to you. It is one of the single most frequent complaints in the entire home DNA industry, and it lands hardest on Italian Americans, because no group carries its grandmother's identity more proudly. And there are 2 reasons behind it. The first is about how you personally inherited your DNA. The second is about Italy itself. We are going to take them one at a time, because separately they're interesting, but together they explain absolutely everything. Here is the first thing nobody explained to you when you opened that little box. You did not inherit your grandmother. You inherited a random half of your parent, and they inherited a random half of theirs. Let's actually walk the line, one generation at a time, because this math is the whole answer. Your 100% Italian grandmother passed exactly half of her DNA down to your parent. So your parent is, at most, 50% her. Then your parent passed half of their own DNA down to you, and that half was scooped up completely at random. Picture shuffling a deck of cards and dealing out only half of them. Some of your grandmother's Italian cards landed in your hand, and some of them, purely by the luck of the shuffle, did not. They stayed in the deck. They went to your brother instead. They simply didn't come to you. This is called recombination, and it happens fresh, from scratch, in every single generation. It is also, by the way, the exact reason 2 siblings, same mother, same father, same grandparents, can open their results side by side and see completely different ethnicity percentages, and then spend the next 20 minutes arguing about who is the real Italian. Here's the truth. They both are. They just got dealt different cards from the same deck. Now stack the plain arithmetic on top of the shuffle. Your Italian grandmother is only one of your 4 grandparents. 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 the generation before that. Even if she was flawlessly, perfectly pure Italian, she represents a shrinking slice of an ever-growing family tree. One pure Italian grandmother, first diluted by the other 3 grandparents' lines, and then thinned again by the random luck of the draw, can very easily land at 19%, or at 9%, or, in real, documented, paper trail-proven cases, at 0%, with a family Bible and a ship manifest proving she was as Italian as the day is long. So the number isn't a lie about your family, it's just how the cards fell for you specifically. But that is still only half of the picture. Because even the Italian DNA you did inherit, the test may be quietly hiding from you, under a different name, and that is reason 2. Here is how a DNA test actually decides that a piece of you is Italian. It does not have some magic Italian detector inside it. What it has is a reference panel, a large group of living people who have deep, documented, generations-old roots in one specific region. The test compares your DNA against them, segment by segment, and it asks one question over and over: who do you look like here? And this is exactly where Italy causes trouble. Because Italy is not tucked away in some quiet, isolated genetic corner of the world. It sits dead center in the Mediterranean, the crossroads of the entire ancient world. For thousands of years, people flowed through it, settled in it, conquered it, traded in it, and married into it from every possible direction: Greece, the Balkans, Spain, North Africa, the Near East. There's a second problem on top of that. Italy isn't even genetically one single thing. A person from Sicily and a person from the far north near the Alps can look meaningfully different in their DNA. The island of Sardinia is such a genetic outlier that scientists study it all on its own. So the testing companies are trying to draw one tidy box called Italian around a peninsula that has never been genetically tidy in its life. So when the algorithm looks at a long stretch of your genuinely, truly Italian DNA, it very often just shrugs and says, well, honestly, this could be Greek, or this looks Balkan, or Iberian, or let's just file it under Southern European and move on. And it labels it as that instead of Italian. Your Italian ancestry did not vanish. It got relabeled. Those Greek and Balkan and Iberian and Southern European slices sitting there underneath your Italian number. For a person with a real Italian grandmother, a good chunk of all of that is the Italian. The test is literally showing you the ingredients of Italy. It's just refusing to call them by the name on the box. So now you have your full answer. Recombination shrank the number, and the reference panel scattered whatever was left across a handful of other headings. Case closed. Your grandmother is completely vindicated. You could honestly stop the video right here and go call your mother. But you shouldn't, because if you look hard at what those other labels actually are, Greek, Mediterranean, Near Eastern, a much stranger question starts to rise up. Why on earth would real, native Italian DNA look Greek in the first place? And the answer to that has nothing to do with your test, or your tube, or your grandmother. It's about who the Italians have actually been, this entire time. We have been quietly assuming this whole time that there is such a thing as pure Italian. Clean, original, unmixed Italian baseline, the true 100% that your grandmother supposedly had, and that you only got a watered-down version of. Here is the twist that turns the whole story upside down. That baseline never existed. And to see it, you don't look at a modern DNA test at all. You look straight down at the ground, at the actual bones of the people who lived and died on the Italian peninsula thousands of years ago. In 2019, that is precisely what a landmark study published in the journal Science set out to do. A team of researchers sequenced the DNA of 127 ancient individuals, pulled from graves in and around the city of Rome, spanning nearly 12,000 years of history, from Stone Age hunters all the way through the fall of the empire. It is one of the most complete genetic portraits ever assembled for any single place on Earth. And what they found buried in the very heart of the Roman Empire quietly rewrites the entire idea of what Italian even means. Look closely at the imperial period, the Rome of the Caesars, the Rome at the absolute peak of its power. The Rome, every single one of us pictures the instant we think the words ancient Italian. The study sampled 48 people who lived in that era, in and around the imperial capital. And of those 48 residents of the greatest city in the ancient world, only two, just two, showed strongly Western European ancestry. So where did the other 46 point? Overwhelmingly toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Their DNA sat closest to Greek and Ishgean populations, people whose deep genetic home was the islands and coastlines of the Greek world, out toward Cyprus and the sea. The population of the capital of the Roman Empire was, at the genetic level, largely Eastern Mediterranean. Rome was a vortex. It pulled in soldiers, merchants, enslaved people, freed people, and families from every shore it ever touched, and all of them became Romans, became, in the deepest biological sense, Italian. Now travel south, down to Sicily and the tip of the boot. For centuries, the Greeks did not merely visit southern Italy. They colonized it. They built cities down there so wealthy and so grand that the ancient world gave the whole region its own name and treated it as a second Greece. Then layer on North African contact across that narrow strip of sea, and Phoenician traders, and Norman conquerors, and Arab rule, and every other people who ever crossed the middle of the Mediterranean, and southern Italy quietly became one of the greatest genetic mixing bowls in human history. And even Italy's most famous mystery people turn out in the end to be homegrown. For 2,500 years, going all the way back to the Greek historian Herodotus himself, people insisted that the Etruscans, the brilliant civilization that rose in Italy before Rome, must have sailed in from somewhere exotic in the east. In 2021, a study in the journal Science Advances finally tested their ancient DNA directly. The verdict? They were local, native to Italy, sharing the same deep ancestry as the neighbors right beside them. Herodotus had been wrong for 2,500 years. So put every piece of it together. Greek colonists blanketing the south, an imperial capital drawing its very blood from the entire eastern Mediterranean, Etruscans and Latins and Greeks and North Africans and a dozen other peoples blending on that one peninsula for thousands of years, long before the word Italian was ever spoken. There was never a pure, sealed, original Italian to begin with. Italian has always, from the very start, meant Mediterranean. Which brings us all the way back around to that number glowing on your screen, 19%. It was never a verdict on whether you are really Italian. It was a snapshot of a 2,000-year-old melting pot, viewed through a machine that can only ever match you against living reference groups. The Greek in your results, the Balkan, the Southern European, the Iberian. For a person with a real Italian grandmother, none of that is evidence against Italy. That is Italy. That is precisely, exactly what the DNA of the peninsula has looked like since before Rome ever crowned an emperor. So here's what to actually do with your results. Stop hunting for that one Italian number and feeling cheated by it. Instead, add up the whole Mediterranean neighborhood, the Italian, yes, but also the Greek, the Southern European, the Balkan, the Iberian sitting right next to it. Look at that fuller picture. That is the real shape of your grandmother's inheritance. And if you tested with more than one company and got two different Italian numbers, don't panic at that either. You were just run against two different reference panels, two different guesses at the same crossroads. Neither one is the truth. The truth is the whole Mediterranean sitting under all of it. Because she was 100% Italian, every last bit of her, she simply carried, folded up inside her blood, the entire crossroads of the ancient world. The Greeks and the Romans and the sailors and the settlers and the conquerors, who all, over the centuries, melted into one single people. And she handed a living piece of that crossroads down to you. You didn't lose your Italian heritage somewhere inside a test tube. You just found out it was older, deeper, and about 100 times more interesting than one word on a pie chart. So the next time somebody frowns down at their results and mutters, "But I always thought I was more Italian than this," you will know exactly what to tell them. You are Italian. The test is not measuring how Italian you are. It is measuring how much of the whole Mediterranean world your family has quietly been carrying the entire time. Now I want to hear it because I know you've got one. What did your DNA test say? And what did your family always swear up and down that you were? Drop the number in the comments. The one your grandmother would have argued with, waving a wooden spoon. I read them all, and I promise you, you are not the only one whose NOH is currently rolling in her grave over a pie chart. And subscribe, because the Italians are not the only ones who turned out to be someone other than who the map always said they were. Next time, we are going somewhere that sounds even more certain, even more solid than Italian, and turns out to be even less true, the English, who, as the DNA is about to reveal, were never really English at all.